Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very top of the show, as is customary at the beginning of the show, we have some music news items, and I think Joy has something special for us.
So I think for the last, 2-3 years we've been doing this now, Tim, we kind of always go over whatever the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees are. And they were just announced for 2024. Of course, I sent it to Tim. We were like, oh, yeah, music news. That's perfect. And then Tim forgot, but I remembered. So I wanted to go over the nominees and get our opinions. And if Tim knows who they are, if I know who they are, whatever it might be. So I think we talked a little bit about some of these once before because I feel like some of these have been announced, but I did a whole nother selection, I think. So the first one is Mary J. Blige. Do you know anything about Mary J. Blige, Tim?
I know the name. I've heard a couple of songs, so I couldn't tell you what they were called, and that is pretty much it.
Well, she sings a song where she says, hateration, holleration. Oh, God, I forgot it now. On the phone, haterating, hollerating in this club or something like that. It's like a great line that, quality. Hater, okay. What is it? Dang it, I'm going to think of it in a minute. I had it in my brain, and then when I went to say it, it didn't come out right. But if you know the song I'm talking about, Family Affair, it's notorious for having a line that says haterating and hollerating in it.
Okay.
Anyway, Tim's like, that means nothing to me. Cher.
I'm surprised Cher's on it. Is she already in with Sonny and Cher, maybe?
Probably. I don't know for sure, but that sounds right. But it says in the performer category, Mary J. Blige and Cher. So,
well, I mean, Cher should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She is an icon, and I'm surprised she's not already in there as a solo artist.
Yeah, and she has done things that kind of borderline pop and rock. Like, I could see both of those. The next one is the Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah, they're sort of a jam band of sorts, Dave Matthews. I mean, if you like Dave Matthews, you really love Dave Matthews. He is such a fan base that's so passionate about him and his music. I'm kind of like take it or leave it with Dave Matthews, but I know people who love that.
Yep. I can agree with Tim on this. I'm kind of like, and I don't know that I would have specifically said there's somebody I think would be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But if you love the Dave Matthews Band, that's not to insult you. It's just, I just don't listen to him that much.
No.
All right. The next one is a band that I'm surprised was not already in here. It's Foreigner.
Yeah, you would think Foreigner would be in there. I mean, they've been getting it done for years. They have such strong hits. Not that any of us ever listen to the radio, but I'm sure classic rock radio plays Cold as Ice.
I want to know what love.
Yeah, and that every third song.
Hot-blooded. Anyway, yeah, I feel like that's probably true. As I bump my camera, I'm a blur for people who can't see me like they care. But
yeah,
I started dancing.
This is an audio podcast, and the only person who can see the blur is me. But anyhow, we're very open and honest here on the No Name Music Cast. We're just telling it how it is.
Yeah, I'm sure Mick Jones is listening to this podcast and is out here to defend Foreigner and cares about me bumping the screen. Anyway, I don't know. It's just, I mean, there's like 1,000, well, not 1,000. There's a lot of Foreigner songs that I feel like everybody knows.
Yeah, and the other thing is Mick Rouse is the only original member. Every other member of the Foreigner is not the original touring band of Foreigner.
Yes. It wasn't even, who was it? Randy Jackson, a guitarist for Foreigner, at one point in time. Maybe it was Journey. It could have been Journey.
Randy Jackson, before he was Dog Man or whatever it is on American Idol.
American Idol.
Yeah, he was probably still is, a fantastic session bass player. And he played with the Jacksons. He played with Foreigner. He played with Journey. I mean,
yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean, if you look through the credits of sort of 80s and 90s, Randy Jackson was all over that stuff as a bass player. And, he was famous for being, the guy that you went to because he was so good.
Well, there you go. I didn't make it up. I thought that was correct. And then as soon as it came out of my mouth, it's gone. Oh, that's what it is, Tim. It's hateration, holleration in this dancery. I forgot the dancery part.
As we all do from time to time.
I've been sitting here going hateration, holleration in this, and my brain wants to say club because that's what you would think, but it's dancery. That's how she rhymes it. Hateration, holleration, dancery.
Marvelous.
Everybody's like, we've already moved on from that, Joy, but good luck. All right, so we're going to be, the next one's Peter Frampton.
Yeah, there's been a campaign to get Peter Frampton in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for a long time. guitarist in Humble Pie. Frampton Come to Life, probably the greatest live album of all time. I mean, you got the Who's live at Leeds and other albums that, routinely come up in that category, but Frampton Comes Alive is way up there. And, he's paid his dues in the world of rock and roll. And I mean, he has some debilitating condition that's never going to get any better. And he did a final tour, and he finished the final tour. And he said, well, actually, I'm not as bad as I thought I was going to be. I'm going to do another tour, and I'm going to do this as long as I can until my health tells me I can't do it anymore. So if you go and see him, he's seated. He doesn't stand when he plays, but he's continuing to rock as long as he possibly can.
Good for him. I love that. I mean, they always say that one thing that happens as you get older, and what's really good for people who are aging, is to find something to give them purpose. Mm-hmm. If they don't have anything to give them purpose, their life becomes incredibly mundane, I would imagine. And that's not what you want when you're 97.
No,
you need things to keep the spark alive.
Yeah, I mean, he's in his 70s, I believe. But I mean, he has the purpose in his blood to rock.
How was it that I told you Barbara Streisand turned yesterday, Tim?
82.
Is that not mind-boggling to everyone listening to this podcast? Me and Tim were both like 82?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Anyway, we're still in the music news, so let me move it along here. The next one is Kool and the Gang, and my wonder is it the modern Kool and the Gang, the one from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s?
Yeah, which members of the gang are eligible to be inducted? And does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame have enough trophies? Because I'm sure Kool has had a number of people through his gang, probably hundreds of people through his gang over the years.
Man, that makes me want to sing a song, but I'm not going to, because there was a guy in the UK who sang it about being the leader of a gang, and I can't sing it anymore.
You don't want to sing that. That's rough, Joy. Next.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, so he's already been inducted as a member of Black Sabbath, but this would be as Ozzy as a solo performer. And again, I'm surprised Ozzy is not already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo performer. His solo material is as strong as Sabbath, and in fact, in some respects, it's probably stronger.
I know him more from his solo material than I actually do for Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
So that's just me. As I'm bumping my poor camera again, Tim, I'm going to have a rough day, guys. The table is taking a beating. Anyway, the next one is something that Brady got mad at me because I said on air I didn't know what it was when we talked about what's before. And I do know what it is now, and I did know it at the time, but it's not something I'm really familiar with. It is a Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, I know nothing about Tribe Called Quest. It's a name I've heard.
I said West Quest. Tim knew what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's a name I've heard. I've never heard any of their music.
See, I know they're known in like the rap and R&B world in the early 80s as being, like pioneers. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't know it. I wouldn't know any of their songs.
No, I have no idea what their music sounds like. I mean, I've got a good idea of what it probably sounds like, and it's not music that I would probably enjoy, if I'm being honest. But, what do I know?
To each their own. So that is the people in the performer category. They also have the Music Excellence Award, and the people who are nominated are Jimmy Buffett. Yeah, obviously makes sense. What MC5? I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is, Tim?
Yeah, Kick Out the Jams. It's a sort of a Detroit-based punk band of the 70s.
Okay. Well, I still don't know who it is, but we'll go with that. Diane Warwick, which I do know who that is.
Yeah.
And then Norman Whitfield. I said that wrong.
That's not someone I'm familiar with.
No, and he doesn't work at a wheat field, everybody. I just can't pronounce words. Let's see. Norman Whitfield was an American songwriter producer who worked at Motown. Okay. Very gory.
He's a Motown gentleman.
Man. And he was a big push for the psychedelic subgenre kind of psychedelic soul sound at Motown. Yeah. There you go, everybody. I probably I've seen his face before at like some of their things for Motown, but I wouldn't know who he was. All right. And now I think Tim has something that he would like to take from here.
Yeah. So big news this week from the world of music. Apparently, Katy Perry is preparing her final weeks as an American Idol judge.
I saw that. That was in the Googs machine when I Googled music news.
Yeah, she has been a judge on American Idol for a long time. I think it was before the COVID era, she was doing
I
that.
think so too.
Yeah, and she's been a fixture on that show. I've never seen 1 minute of that TV program, though I do
I
follow
did.
Katy Perry on Instagram and see her various exploits with Lionel Richie and what have you. But as I said, I've never seen the show. But I mean, maybe she just got bored of doing it. I don't know.
I feel like that would be a gig that at first is like it's good money, it's easy to do, but eventually you might get a little burnt out on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their shooting schedule is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't imagine it's that hard, really. I mean, Penn Jillette of Penn and
Hmm.
Teller, he has this theory. He says if you work in the entertainment industry, you have not worked as hard as anyone else who worked a regular job that day. You know, if you were a host on American Idol or a judge on American Idol, and you claim that you worked hard, go and talk to somebody who waited a table. Go and talk to somebody who worked in a factory or
Somebody doing open heart surgery on
yeah, worked
someone.
in an office, and they will all tell you didn't work as hard as they did.
Yep. And I mean, there are some struggles to become famous, and but once you've reached Katy Perry's status, it's like I feel like,
Absolutely, but I mean, maybe she just got fed up with it. I mean, I don't know.
or she wants to tour again because I mean, around the American Idol school, she probably can't tour. You know what I mean? And so maybe she just wants to go back to touring. That's where her heart is. I'm not sure.
I mean, she did a residency in Vegas for her
Mhm.
play thing, and I wish I'd have seen it because I saw some footage from it, and it looked
It looks
absolutely
cool.
fantastic. And I like the hits of Katy Perry, and I would have gone to see that. I'm sure it was fabulous.
Tim would have like woke up, listened to Waking Up to Vegas. He would have drove around, found the nearest what's the restaurant you go to? Hard Rock.
Hard rock, that's it.
Got lunch, and then he would have got in the car, and then it would have been whatever that other song she sings is about Vegas, and then driving to the event.
Oh, it would have been fantastic. I mean, that's important, you see. Anytime that you go to an event or doing something, is you have a suitable soundtrack.
You really have to every day in life. And I really think about long and hard what is my, like, if I have a theme song, like, what is my theme song?
I don't know.
Have you thought that,
Mine is
Tim?
maybe Rick Derringer's Real American. I don't know.
I always lean to the B is Back by Elton John. That's
I mean,
always the one I go for.
yeah, I don't know what mine would be. In all honesty, I'm not sure.
Tim has not thought about this as much as I have. All right. Well, let's move it along.
Okay, so this week is my topic, and
People are like, they haven't even gotten to the topic yet.
well, of course not. No, we had important music news to talk about.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so this week is my topic, and this is a kind of follow-on from the topic I had a couple of episodes ago. Now, I did say it was going to be a two-parter, and so this will be the second part of it. So previously on the No No Music Cast, you would have heard an episode where I'm talking about fire songs,
Yep.
and as a follow-up to that, we are talking about ice songs.
Wow. I didn't think of, I never would have guessed.
Now, I will confess, going through my music library, there's not as many ice songs as there are fire songs.
I was like, is this going to be a Frozen episode?
Well, and I wanted to make sure I had an ice episode, but the word ice appears in some of these song titles, though it might be in the middle of other words. So I'm just, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just putting that out there now in case you think I'm ripping you off or something.
They're going to be like, this seems a little bit suspect, but all right, Tim, I'll take it.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about, and this is an absolute favorite of mine, and maybe the favorite track off this album. And we have covered it in the past, but I think you couldn't have an ice episode without talking about this. And this is The Darkness, Love on the Rocks with No Ice.
Dang, I thought for sure it was going to be Ice Ice Baby. Because I know how much Tim loves that song. No, but we talked pretty heavily about this. I mean, me and Tim are both the Darkness lovers. Like, they're one of the greatest bands ever. This song particularly doesn't, I mean, I like it. I don't know that it's this. I remember you saying it's one of your favorites. It doesn't necessarily stand out to me, but I do remember Tim saying he loves this one.
Yeah, I like Black Shark off
Yeah.
To Permission to Land, but Love on the Rocks with No Ice is fantastic. And it brings back a certain memory of a car journey to a gig. And there were some friends in the back and they were all headbanging and all this kind of stuff. And we had Love on the Rocks with No Ice playing. That was a good time. That was a good time in my life.
That makes sense. That's always the way whenever you have like that association with music. I remember this music video. It used to be on quite a bit. But other than that, like it's not one that particularly stands out to me. But to be fair, Tim, it does have ice in the title, so you nailed it for your opening song.
There we are. See, I thought I'd focus on the actual icy ones, and then we'll go to the ones that are slightly on the cusp of wordplay, if you will.
They're in the UK instead of in America, where you can't get any ice.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we spoke about that the other day where like in this country, you can get ice everywhere. Go to a hotel and there's an ice machine. Our office where we work had an ice machine, and then they took it out because it was broken, and then they had to get a fridge with an ice maker. I mean, it's very ice-centric. I couldn't care less really about having ice in drinks and stuff, but it seems to be a US thing. We like our ice here.
I wonder why, though. I wonder where that comes from. Maybe it's like refrigeration issues back in the day or something. It has to spawn for something. Because, I mean, most of us came from England, and they don't like ice. So, like...
I don't know. Maybe it's a climate thing, but again, it's just like a culture thing. It's certain, like we spoke about tipping in the last episode. That's a US thing. Ice is a US thing, but it's not necessarily in England. I don't know.
Well, if you guys know and you're listening, please tell Tim and me where the history of ice in America came from. Because obviously we need to know. But it is kind of interesting. I mean, to be fair, like I have family that came from Europe. I have Native American family, and I don't think it came from the Native American side. I could be wrong, but I don't know that they were big on their ice. I forgot what song Love on the Rocks with no ice. I forgot what song we were talking about. All right, what's next?
Okay, so the next one I have for you, this is from Van Halen, and this is from the original incarnation of Van Halen, featuring David Lee Roth and Michael Anthony. And this is the song Ice Cream Man.
I mean, ice cream is kind of like ice. Is it really the same, though?
Well, it's got the word ice in the title.
Ice cream isn't necessarily ice, though. I guess it is frozen.
Yeah, it's frozen milk stuff. And then there would be ice particles in it.
Is it milk ice? Is it the milk version of ice?
Did you ever, when you was younger, did you ever try and make your own ice cream by freezing milk?
Yeah, but I was never a big ice cream person, but I did try it. And we used to make when it was snow, we would make like ice snow cream. Have you ever had that, Tim?
I've never tried it. I mean, growing up, there was always talking about acid rain in the UK. So the last thing you really want to do is capture precipitation and eat it or drink it.
Well, the rule of thumb in America is you can make snow cream as long as it's not the first snow, because they got to clean out the atmosphere. I don't know how accurate that is, but it's what we say in the South. You can make snow cream, but you can't make it on the first snow because it's got to clean out the stuff. I don't know. It's just what I was taught. It's probably some Southern myth, but
I've never heard of that, but as I said, I grew up. There was all like tabloid newspapers. What was always talking about acid rain. So the thought of ingesting that deliberately is not what I want to be doing.
So you don't think Van Halen's ice cream, when he's literally singing about being on a beach, has anything to do with snow cream? But anyway, oh gosh. This episode is going to be one for the books. I can tell you that now. It is kind of erotic you picked this song because he's talking about like being on a beach and summertime and all that kind of stuff in it.
Yeah, I think this is a song with a lot of metaphors in it, and I don't think Dave is necessarily a man vending ice cream the way you think he is.
Really, Tim? Really? I thought every song that talks about a lollipop and ice cream was literal.
Well, my understanding is normally the case, but with Diamond Dave, probably not.
Fair enough. All right, what's next?
Okay, so this is a 2024 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees Foreigner with the song Cold as Ice.
I mean, did you use Hot Blooded in the last episode?
I think I probably did. I mean, this is like a nice little bookend for you.
It does. It rolls the whole thing out. Florida has a thing for temperatures, I guess.
Yeah, they're very temperature centric.
Maybe they took when you're in the UK, dang it, I have been beating my table again, you guys. You guys are going to have to start on the bingo card. How many times did Joy knock her camera and tell us, even though we can't see her? But anyway, no, in the UK, Dang it, I forgot what I was going to ask. That's interesting. So, like, you know what? And you work at like a food place in America, you have to do a like a little course, a
Mhm.
food safety course. Do they have a UK equivalent of that?
I have no idea because I've never worked in a food service. I only ever worked in retail. I never worked in like a food type service. But mind you, I worked in a drugstore which
Yeah.
sold food and drinks. I mean, not, stuff that you would, it was all stuff that was pre-prepared or
Yeah.
packaged.
Not like you were in a deli or
No,
something.
no, no. And I never had to go on a food safety course or anything. It was just like throw it on the shelf and get on with it. The only thing I was told is you couldn't stack food directly on the floor. You had to put it on a plinth.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I don't think you're allowed to shop food directly on the floor either here, but I will say I was gonna make a joke. Maybe Forwarder was really they took their food handler test a little too seriously, and then I was like, wait, is that a thing in the UK? I don't know.
It may be. As I said, I've never worked in a restaurant or waited a table or anything like that. As I said, all of my formative years were working in retail or retail banking.
Well, if someone knows, let us know. Anyway, to be fair though, Tim, I don't think this song is literal about ice either. I think he may be referring to someone's heart.
I think so. But in the Aqua Teen Hunger Force episode, when the Moonanites point to Carl in the swimming pool and
Yes,
says,
I know
"And you
exactly.
are cold as
Cold as
ice."
ice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that exact one. Charlie cracked up on that episode.
yeah. But my
Anyway,
favorite one of that is that when he said, when he points to him and said, he presses the foreigner bell and he points to Carl, and then he has a Sabutio board or whatever it is, or Connect Four. No, no, it's a Connect Four board on his head. And he goes, "Okay, who put this thing on Head Games?"
there's so many. That is such an underrated show, Tim.
It's
I love
fantastic. I love Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Me too. And I quote it a lot. It's one that comes up in my head all the time. And for some
Exactly.
reason, I'll see people to be like, that person looks like Carl. If Carl were real, that's a real Carl. Just take that however you want. All right, what's the next song?
Okay, so this is a little bit more of an obscure song, and I'm just interested to know whether you even know the album of this. And this
Okay.
is Joe Satriani with the album Surfing with the Alien. Is there anything that you're familiar with?
I've heard the name Joe Satriani before, but only because I think you've said it, Tim. But I can't recognize anything that he's done. No.
So he's a virtuoso guitar player. He's played with
Yeah,
a
I
lot
think
of
you've
people.
said it
He
before.
played in the band Chickenfoot with Sammy Hagar as well. He was a backing guitarist for Mick Jagger. And he's been sort of a solo instrumental guitarist for almost all of his career in addition to that. And his album Surfing with the Alien is his Sergeant Pepper, if you like. That's for me, that's a definitive article. You have Passion and Warfare from Steve Vai, and then you have
Hmm.
Surfing with the Alien from Joe Satriani. And he has a song on there called Ice Number Nine. Now, I wouldn't expect you to know that song. You might know Satch Boogie, possibly if you heard it.
Not really,
Or
no.
Circles, Always with Me, Always with You might have heard of, possibly. But
Fair. I mean, it might be one of those things I'd have to listen to know if I
yeah,
know
yeah,
it.
yeah. But it was more, as I said, this track's called Ice Number Nine, but I was just curious to know whether that was something that was on your radar.
I've heard you talk about him as being a guitar virtuoso, but I'm going to
Mhm.
be honest, and you've said this too, Tim. Sometimes guitar music is boring.
It's incredibly boring, and there are very few guitar albums I could listen to all the way through. Something like Dream Theater. I mean, that's not necessarily
Yeah.
completely guitar music, but it just bores me silly. And a lot of the later Satriani albums or Vai albums, it's just too much. It doesn't have a hook or it doesn't have a tune. It's just widdly guitar for the sake of widdly guitar. But I will say, Surfing with the Alien from beginning to end is superb.
So that's one that I'm worth listening to. Okay, I'll add it to the Spotify, Tim, for you.
There we are. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's move on to this one. Now, this is from the John O'Leary Band,
Okay.
which is a band that I played in on and off whilst.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, a number of years ago. And this is actually from the album Sins, but
Okay.
on Spotify, it's from the album called Two for the Show, which is studio
Mm.
and live. And this is the song House of Ice, which is an original song. And I play a solo on this. And if you wanted to pull it
Whoa.
up on the Spotify, you could. And very sadly, we lost John O'Leary about a week ago.
Oh, this was your friend you talked about, right? He was
Yeah,
in bad
yeah,
health.
yeah. I mean, he was someone who was around the jam scene in West London, 15 or so years ago. And, you see him around and you play music with him. And my friend used to play guitar in his band. And through that connection, I played on the album Sins, which got released as a regular CD. And then he went out and did a bunch of live gigs here, there, and everywhere. And I was part of the band for a while, in fact.
Yeah, I've heard you say the name before, but I wasn't 100% sure. Was there anybody else that like is part of the Freak Jam that was in the band with you, or was it people I wouldn't know?
No, it was away from the Freak Jam group of companies. Originally there was a jam session in Twickenham at the Red Lion. And that was the sort of the first open mic jam night, the kind of thing that I ever went to. And then I did that for 10 plus years, I suppose. And then I can't remember how I met up with Ian and Co. I really can't. They may have actually come to the Red Lion. I can't remember how the connection was made. And then they had a jam session in Bentley's, and then the Fox and Pheasant and Blues Bar and
all those places
all
had
the other places.
bathrooms.
Yeah, that's now ended up in Mr. Bumble's. But no, the Red Line Jam originally was a completely separate thing, and that's where I met some of the band members who ultimately ended up with John O'Leary.
Well, there you go. Well, I'm sad to hear him go. I know you've talked about him pretty fondly.
Yeah, I mean, he was an older gentleman. I think he was very late 70s or something, and he hadn't been well for a while. But we had some fun times with John. We played the Running Horse in Nottingham, and then they provided us with a room which was just mattresses on the floor, and then he made us breakfast. I mean, we had some good times on the road with John.
It's funny you say that because I was talking to my friend earlier about she used to have an old farmhouse that a lot of us would go hang out at. It was just kind of like the one friend house you're always at, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one night, I don't remember exactly why, Tim, and there was no alcohol or anything like that. I was too young. We were just teenagers being silly. But I fell asleep on the porch, the wooden porch, and I slept through the night on a porch. And she posted a video talking about that today. And I thought to myself, if I fell asleep on a porch now, Tim, I wouldn't be able to move. I would be in the ER for 3 to 10 weeks if I slept on a porch. I can't sleep on my arm on the wrong side of my bed that's a pillow top for too long without pain. Could you imagine sleeping on a porch now, Tim?
Yeah, I remember one time I did a gig and it was somewhere up. It was like Norwich or somewhere in the east coast of England somewhere. I can't remember. And we played a gig there. And then the people who owned the place said, oh, you can stay here if you want to and just leave in the morning. And I think it was a place called the Cider Shed. And they was a brewery and they made cider and beer and all this kind of stuff.
What, did it look like a shed?
Well, no, it was like a brewery bar type thing.
Okay.
And we played a great gig there, and it was good fun, and it was deemed that we was going to stay at this place overnight. But of course, they didn't provide any rooms or anything. It was just like all of the seating in the bar that you could sleep on, or you could sleep on the stage. And I seem to remember bringing a sleeping bag or something, and then sleeping on the stage. And it was just hard wood. I mean, this wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things. Maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, probably closer to 20. But I mean, goodness me. I mean,
could you imagine doing that now, Tim?
I mean, these days, if I was in a band and they said, hey, we're going to play at the so-and-so, you can stay over. Well, are they providing rooms, a hotel? No, you can just sleep on the stage. It's like, actually, I'm going to get a travel tavern. I'm going to get my own room.
Or I would sleep in my car before I would just sleep on the stage, Tim.
I know. And then the other guitar player I was playing with at the time, he had it in his head that he wanted to sleep on the bar. And the people who owned this place facilitated that because he really was excited about sleeping on the bar. And the bar was not even that wide. I mean, it's just...
He's one rollover from just falling right off is what you're saying.
Exactly.
But it's funny you say that because me and Charlie had this conversation about like when you're younger, the places you've slept at that like as an adult, you're like, there's no way. Like if I don't have I have to sleep on a wedge pillow, Tim. My mattress has to be built. It has to be cold as no other in my house. There's some temperature constrictions. I can't do any of that anymore. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, I cottoned on to that long ago when we used to go to these bug jam things with the Freak Jam group of companies. And my dad had a panel van. So I used to take the panel van there and take the mattress and bedding off my bed and throw it in the back. So it was just like being at home. And then, later on, after I didn't have use of the van anymore. I used to just go in my. They used to mess about with tents, and I used to just go in my car and crank the seat back with a duvet, and it's like there you go.
That's about as far as I'm getting. And the idea of are you somebody who enjoys the idea of camping? Because I am not, Tim.
No, I'm not.
Absolutely not.
I'm lucky. I'm at a point in my life. I have a job, and if I want to buy a hotel room, I will.
Well, I was just thinking, I feel like camping, it's just glorifying, like, I don't want to say homeless people, but like, why am I gonna, if I can afford a home, why am I sleeping on the ground?
I mean, I can see sort of the appeal. If you're camping in nature
Yeah.
and you're waking up in a forest or you're waking up
I'm just not an outdoorsy person.
No, but I can see if you're an outdoorsy kind of person, I can see that appeal. You know, you pitch up your tent beside a river or a lake or a stream, and then you wake up in the morning and you're the only person there, and all that surrounds you is nature. I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that, and I can see the appeal of that. But it doesn't appeal to me, especially when you can buy a hotel room.
Thing. My version of camping is like a hotel room looking over the French Riviera that maybe I had to walk the steps up to.
Yeah, my idea of camping is a hotel on the Las Vegas Strip overlooking the fountains of the Bellagio and a fake Eiffel Tower.
All right. Well, back to cold songs. Cold songs.
Or the ice songs.
Specifically ice songs. All right. What's next?
Okay. So this one, let's go with this. So this is our friend Elvis Presley, and it's Treat Me Nice. Treat Me Nice.
Okay, well, I feel like Tim was running out of songs, or that happened to come up when he typed in ice, because technically it's in there.
It's in there, Joy. Legally, it's in there.
I mean, to be fair, though, it's funny you say this, because remember in the last episode, we talked about he kept giving everyone cars. So he really was about treating people nice.
Yeah,
he gave them the cars.
Elvis's mother raised him well.
Yeah. I mean, he rhymes like kiss me twice with be nice. So it all kind of comes full circle.
And you should never question the king of rock and roll.
Every decision he made was wonderful. He probably could have skipped those hamburgers covered in peanut butter a few times, but yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you that if you go to the Hard Rock Cafe in Memphis, they have a special Elvis dessert, which is peanut butter and banana and something else, and it's like 3,000 calories or something.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but there's something that I remember he ate. But to be fair, he did sign up to go to war and served in the military without being drafted because he knew he was going to be drafted, and he didn't dodge it, or he could have got out of it because he's a celebrity. And he said, nope, I'm going just like everybody else. He was a man of the people. He
was, but I don't think he lasted that long in the military, and I think it was very difficult for him to serve because of the celebrity he had.
Yeah, but I mean, he gave it his best effort.
There we are.
That's all I'm saying.
Good on you, Patriot Elvis.
Yes. Because you're obviously alive.
Well, so if you listen to the last episode, you would know that he's still alive and he's living on the moon in a double-decker bus. Well, that's what the Sunday Sport taught me in about 1987.
All right, Tim. Speaking of random things, I sent this to you earlier and you did not respond. The Daily Mail. For those of you guys who don't know, Daily Mail is just tabloid newspaper in England. Right?
Well, let me just say, the Daily Mail is Fox News in England.
There, that's a better analogy. In the UK, if someone were to hang themselves, would you say hanged or hung? Because the way the Daily Mail wrote it made me feel like it was written differently. They kept saying hang themselves instead of hung, and that confused me.
You would hang.
Do they use hung in the UK at all?
Yeah, you say like a hung parliament, or like in that context.
But you wouldn't use it in that.
No, but I think you say hang or hanged.
That bothers me in my soul. I don't like that. Then Tim can tell you, in America, we would say someone hung themselves or you hung up something. The reason I'm not trying to be, morbid is the article was about some famous person that had recently committed suicide. Trigger warning, everybody. And so I sent Tim the thing and I was like, did the Daily Mail just not know how to spell this, or is this how you would say it in the UK?
No,
I was
that's
genuinely curious.
yeah. You like you say, oh, I'm going to hang that out to dry. You don't say you hung it out to dry. You say hang.
Fine, I'll take it. I don't agree with it, but I'll take it. All right, what's next?
Okay, let's go with this one. Okay, so this is Delbert McClinton, which is
Okay.
probably an artist we haven't covered on this podcast before.
I can't think so.
No, and this is the only song I know about Delbert McClinton, and this is Every Time I Roll the Dice, the Ice.
That's the only song I know from him either. There's somebody out there who's screaming, going, he's a great American blues rock. You know what I mean? He is a
Exactly.
guitar player, and I think he plays like the harmonica or something.
Something like that.
So he's probably got some cult following that's yelling at him. I mean, dice is technically ice, but you really don't roll ice typically, Tim. That's not something most people do.
No, but you roll the dice, and ice is integral to dice because it has a D or something.
I'll take it. We'll let it slide. It's kind of funny that you brought this up, though. Was this a song that you learned when you came to America, or was this a song that was popular in the UK?
No, I'd never ever heard this song
That's what I figured.
before we played it in a band several years ago. And it was a request of the singer's sister. Used to say, "Oh, you need to learn the song. It's great. It's great." And I'd never heard it prior to that.
Well, I do know he used to do a duet with Tanya Tucker. Like, I remember seeing that in the 80s, and I may have heard that a few times. So maybe I'm lying. I do know like one other thing from him. But he's kind of like a country artist. For those who don't know, like country rock, bluesy sounding.
Yeah,
He's very Southern guitar.
Yeah, I mean he's not super country really,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's got that kind of twang about it, I suppose.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. So that's why I was curious if this was something Tim had learned playing in Southern bands.
No,
Because it sounds like a song you would hear then.
Yeah, no, it's something I definitely learned living here. Nothing that I ever learned but living in England.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard a band really play it here either. It's probably not in like the top bands locally to list.
No, well, if
No.
you need someone to play you every time I roll the dice, I know how to play it. It's in the key of G.
I'll take your word for it, Tim. I mean, I'm pretty trustworthy. I've seen you play the guitar about 1,000 times that you usually can handle it.
Yeah, I think I'll be okay.
That's kind of funny though. All right, what's next?
All right, so this is another Bond song. This is from the film License to Kill, Gladys Knight, and the song License to Kill, when license, of course, has ice in it.
I mean, that seems like a stretch.
Well, Lice. It's got ice. It's ice. There it is. It's just nestling in there. And you never question Gladys Knight, for goodness sake.
That is true. Now my question is License to Chill on this list?
No, well, I'm just going with the kill, not the chill.
Because, I mean, that would fit into the realm. For those who don't know, that's a Beastie Boys song. Now, I mean, Tim is a James Bond aficionado, but he's very specific on which ones he likes. I'm kind of on the fence. I don't have like a real preference.
Yeah, I only really like Roger Moore. Roger Moore James Bond films are the best. The Timothy Dalton ones are kind of meh.
He doesn't look like, or he doesn't really embody James Bond to me. There's just something like, I don't want to say dull about him, but he doesn't give James Bond.
No, James Bond has to be Roger Moore. That's when you see Roger Moore, even in The Saint or anything else after the fact, you just go, yes, that is James Bond.
I think I've seen this. I mean, this is like late 80s, so I've seen the movie a few times, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not huge on James Bond, but I agree with Tim on this. Roger Moore is probably somebody I feel like embodies James Bond a little. Oh my gosh, James Bond a little bit more.
Yeah, and as we know, the greatest film of all time is Moonraker.
That is true. Tim will tell you that every time he can.
Because it is. The other day, I just needed to see the opening titles of Moonraker, where there's this whole kind of aerial thing where James Bond gets thrown out of an aeroplane and the man's chasing him and they're trying to get parachutes off each other. And it's all done for real and there's no computer graphics. It's like, yes, this is the best thing ever.
This is the thing. This is the one. Though I will say, I just rewatched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Tim, because I love that movie. And the opening when he's in the bar, do you know what I'm talking about? Like the opening scene where the guys go to the bar and then like, right before they start, like, they get taken or whatever, and he goes to the bar. That scene is so perfect. Or it's kind of, I guess, a pub because they're not in America, but.
Yeah,
That scene is perfect.
I've never seen the film. I'm a huge fan of the original TV series from the 80s and also the audiobook and even the book. That was a book I read growing up. But the film, I don't know if I'm ready for the film because I like the TV series so much.
Fine. Okay. Well, I love the book and I love the TV series, and I constantly tell everybody my favorite, one of my favorite quotes comes from that. And it's basically like the world, on the absurdity of the world. Basically, if we ever figure out why we're here, we'll self implode on ourselves. If you
Yeah,
don't know that quote, it's one of my favorites.
yeah.
And
Bypasses, Mr. Dent. You have to build bypasses.
I, if you guys are not familiar with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, read the book, watch the show, and watch the movie. That's my opinion.
And then kick back with a Pangalactic Goggle Blaster.
It's true. And I mean, it's weird to me, there's a big cult following to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but it seems to me most people that I come in contact, the people I attract have loved that movie or loved the show or loved the book.
Yeah, absolutely. It was something that I was turned on to when I was very much younger, and I just really loved it. And when I was reading the book was when it aired on TV for the first time, and it was just so exciting. And I think that there's a sort of that dry humor that it has really sort of set my funny bone. It really sort of set that for
it's very
me.
British. I'm just gonna say it's very British humor. It takes place, you know what I mean, obviously, and it's from the 80s for those who haven't seen it. And I think there was wasn't there a video game or something that was developed after it came
Yeah,
out?
there was all kinds of stuff came off the back of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The follow-on books were never as good as the first one. The follow-on
Yeah.
book is A Restaurant at the End of the Universe, and it's good, but the first piece, Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is by far the definitive article in that.
And I think it was originally on the radio.
Oh, it was, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And it was the book originally, and then there was a radio play, and then there was the TV show, and all of them were ever so slightly different.
Yeah.
Douglas Adams would write them for the medium.
I mean, it makes sense though, because different mediums need different, ways to engage you. But I will say it's one of my favorites, and it has some of the best quotes. Also, for those who don't know what we're talking about, it's comedy, science fiction-y, that kind of thing.
Exactly, it was social commentary, dry British humor, etc., etc., etc.
I mean, the radio was probably the BBC or something, if I have to be honest with you. But yes,
Yes, I believe it was on Radio 4.
is that part of the BBC?
Yeah, it's one of those channels.
Okay. Well, I'll take Tim's word for it. I don't know what pushed us into this, but I think we're supposed to be talking about ice songs.
Oh, okay. So we may have covered this one before, but it came up because it has ice in the name, sort of.
Okay.
And this is Jan Hammer, and this is the Miami Vice theme. And
We've definitely talked about this
yeah, and
before.
it just again, I'm surprised that it wasn't a hit in the United States because there was a period of time when popular TV shows themes were in the hit parade.
Yeah, especially in like me and Tim have talked about the Love Boat. There's like a whole subgenre. I mean, I've heard it before. I think it was kind of a hit, but it wasn't like Hill Street Blues or anything like that. Like that's whatever. For those who don't know, there's a show. It's like Hill Street Blues, Hill Street. I got anyway, but that was one I can think of that was popular. You would hear on the radio or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the Ballad of the Unknown Stuntman from the TV show The Fall Guy. Is that something that you're familiar with?
I know what the TV show The Fall Guy is, but I never watched it. Like I've seen it visually, and you've talked about it before a little bit. So yes, I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's very hard to get hold of. Like the first season was available on DVD. The second season was only available in Germany on DVD, and seasons 3 to
That's
5 are
very
almost
specific.
impossible to find. And there's been a few like internet Reddit type things where people have taken things off VHS tapes and stuff and remastered them and things like that.
But there is this kind of thing, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine there has to be like a culture in the UK of people watching stuff like Miami Vice or like some of the stuff you like. I imagine that's a
Yeah,
thing.
I would
Like the A-Team.
You would be surprised at how popular US TV shows are in the UK. Like Knight Rider, The A-Team, Miami Vice,
Basically everything you've ever talked about.
The Fall Guy. They had chips. They had such a big following in the UK, more than they had here, I think.
I think so. Like, I mean, for me, like the A-Team is kind of one of those ones because they've made like, the bus and Mr. T, and they made like kind of some merchandise off of that. That one's very familiar, and it's even like they make fun of it a lot. Like, remember that Adult Swim cartoon that was making fun of the A-Team? Oh, what
Hmm.
was it? I can't remember what it was called, but Air America, dang it. Do you know what I'm talking about though? They had like
Sure,
the
yeah, yeah.
doll and the
I
okay.
know the one you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of got some historical preference because it's used in culture a lot. But like
Hmm.
Miami Vice is mostly kind of made, there's some cultural kind of thing, but it's not as big. Chips is funny, and they even remade it recently. I don't know if you watched it or not. I didn't, but I mean, it wasn't like I would say like a cultural phenomenon. And so, like when you talk about stuff, it's interesting to me because they're American made shows, but it has to like there had to be like a genre where everybody was obsessed with them.
Yeah, they were just huge in the UK. Were really, really big. And of course, my favorite is Knight Rider, and I've spoken about my obsession
Yeah.
with that a lot. But like, I remember David Hasselhoff being interviewed. He was doing a theatre show in London, and he said, he said I've been all around the world. I've done public appearances. I've been in theatre shows. I've performed music all around the world. I've done all this stuff.
Mhm.
He said when I play in London, he said more Knight Rider cars turn up than anywhere else in the world. He said I come out that stage door and there's two or three of those things every day, and he said it's the only place in the world it happens.
There you go. I don't know why. I'm sure it just was popular. I will say, would you say that non-comedies were probably more popular in the UK, or was because like the American humor is a little different than comedic humor, and the shows we're talking about, yeah, there's some funniness to them, but they're not necessarily comedies.
Yeah, I mean, some of the comedy shows were popular, I suppose, but I
Hmm.
think British comedy shows were probably more popular. And as you say, it's probably because of the way that the humor translates. But sort of these action and adventure type thing, TJ Hooker and Hill Street Blues and
I
stuff.
know. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I know we talked a little bit about like the show, the one about Vietnam, the that your dad
MASH.
watched, MASH. Uh, the laugh tracks and stuff, so it was much more morbid. Did any of the shows have the laugh tracks in the UK that you watched, or was that pretty
Yeah, I
much
mean,
almost an American thing?
a lot of them did. I mean, like Cheers, for example, that had the laugh track going on it. But I think MASH is an outlier. The fact that they took the laugh
Hmm.
track off for the UK audience because they didn't think it would come over well.
Which is kind of weird because that makes MASH a whole different show. Like
Yeah.
a completely different show. My dad watched MASH a lot when I was younger. It'd just be playing in the background of the TV a lot. And
Hmm.
so for me, it was funny. It was supposed to be funny, but if you took people laughing away from it, I looked at it at its core, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it was very dark. It was a very dark show. My dad used to like watching it. It was on BBC Two at like 9 p.m. And
Hmm.
it was a I always as a kid I always thought it was really boring because it's not something you'd really watch.
Yeah. I still think it's boring, but I just remember it playing a lot in the background. All right, I guess we should get back to ice songs.
There we are. I think we've got time to do a few more songs about ice or songs that have the word ice somehow in their grammatical makeup.
We've literally talked about everything but the songs this entire episode. All right, what's next, Tim?
Okay, this is the Pet Shop Boys, and this is from their album Introspective, which is an album which I actually still own on record, even though I
Mhm.
sold off a lot of my records. And this is a song Left to My Own Devices, which does have ice in the end there.
I mean, I'll let you have it, Tim. I like how everything is just he searched ice and they found it, the algorithm found it at the end of the words, and Tim's like, okay, that works.
Well, like I said, there's a lot more direct fire songs than there are ice songs, but I wanted to complete the circle, if you will.
You have to, because you really had to do the bookends of Foreigner to make it full scale.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's a good song. The Pet Shop Boys are one that Charlie really likes. He plays them occasionally, so I see them pretty often.
Hmm.
I don't know if that surprises you or not, but he does enjoy the Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah, they had such good music, especially in the 80s. I mean, they're still getting it done. They're still making
Mhm.
music, but I think their 80s output is hard to match. And the vocal stylings of the
Agreed.
Pet Shop Boys, it wasn't rapping, it was sort of like talking. I mean, it was almost like my
Speak
sleepy time
singing, yeah,
versions
it's
of
speak
things.
singing is what I think of it as.
Yeah, maybe I could do Pet Shop Boys songs. I don't know.
Well, Tim, if we ever, gosh, I hope not, but if we ever have a time where we're not able to go out of our houses and everybody's producing music on the internet again, That'll be your next go round.
Yeah, I could recover the entire of the Pet Shop Boys actually album or something. I don't know.
I don't want to say the word again because I don't want to jinx us. But if it ever happens that you have spent some time inside, Tim,
Exactly. I mean, for us where we worked at the time, I mean, everyone was locked down. No one could leave their house apart from us that went to work every day.
Yeah, I mean, I was at home like 3 days a week in an office, 2 days a week, pretty much the entire time. And like Tim said, the traffic was dead. We were the only ones working because we were essential.
Yeah,
So,
I was for the first couple of weeks, we worked a week on, week off at home. And then we did it for a month. And then we all got together and said, this doesn't work. We can't do IT support like this. And he said, sure, you'll come back. And we was like, yeah, that's fine. And we all just came back to the office. So it was like is what it is.
well, you did kind of have your own private areas, I think, and you did the best you could with masks. But I mean, IT support is not something that you physically have to fix people's computer. Hardware exists, Tim. So I mean,
Yeah, you can talk people through things remotely, but outside of that, it's almost impossible to do.
yeah, and especially when it's the provider in her 70s, you know what I mean? You're trying to help her find her HDMI cable.
Exactly.
Just FYI, everybody. So I see, from my perspective, HR is something I could pretty much easily do out of, office. The hardest thing for us was just like making badges, but we had somebody coming in and out that could do that. So
Sure, but there we are. Let's hope that those very bizarre times never happen again in our lifetimes.
names that should not be spoken. All right, we were talking about the Pet Shop Boys. I mean, really, all I think of when I think of the Pet Shop Boys is honestly West End Girls.
Yeah, that's a great song.
It's a great song. I love that song, and it gets stuck in my head really easily.
I used to like Suburbia. I had that on 7-inch single.
It's a good one too. I've heard that. I feel like you're right though, Tim. I think that a Tim O'Sullivan Pet Shop Speaking Sound album is a good idea.
Yeah, maybe I could do that. So I could get the backing tracks. I could strip some of the synths off. So I could play the parts on guitar and then do a spoken word type reading of Pet Shop Boys songs. I mean,
There we go.
if I had
Do
a
a
beard,
special.
Joy, I'd be tugging that beard right now.
Newsflash, everybody. Tim does not have a beard if you did not know.
No. And do you know what? Do you want an interesting fun fact?
Sure.
I've never ever grown a beard.
Well, Tim can tell you my husband has went through many different beard shapes and sizes and everything in between.
Yeah, I've gone 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and it gets to a not so much a beard, but it starts getting look very scruffy.
Prickly.
Yeah, prickly, and I'm like, this has got to go.
My problem is like, I know it probably gets itchy. I feel like it
Yeah.
would get itchy or just annoying.
Yeah, and it gets to that phase where it just looks really scruffy.
I have a question, Tim,
Mm-hmm.
about the word itch. Do you hate it when someone says something itches and then they say, instead of saying they scratch themselves, they say they itch themselves? I hate that. Have you ever heard somebody say that?
I have heard people say that. It doesn't bother me, but it probably will now.
Just FYI, I hate when people do it because they're not itching themselves, they're scratching themselves.
Well, they're scratching.
So-
They're scratching an itch.
Scratching
In
the
fact,
itch. And so that literally drives me insane. Like it's just one of those weird pet peeves that I know is probably not that serious, right, Tim? Vernacular changes no matter where we are, and it's really not that serious. But every time somebody says it, I can't not hear it. I'm like, you're not itching it, you're scratching it, you're scratching it. But you don't want to be that person who corrects people, right? Because you knew what they meant.
Exactly. And as you
Semantics.
know, I live in this kind of linguistic journey where I have the way that I would learn to speak, and then I've moved
That's
myself
true.
into a place where 99% of the time they can understand me. Well, 95% of the time they can understand me. But sometimes my sentence structure and pronunciation bring people much delight, shall we say.
I'm just saying, now and forever, Tim, when someone says they itch themselves, this is the moment you're going to think of.
I will think of you, Joy, and I will be annoyed for you.
Thank you. This is Tim's version of me with You're So Vain and now knowing Mick Jagger does the backing vocals. Every time I listen to that song, that's all I hear now. It's so obvious. I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah, and because I think Carly Simon was seeing Mick Jagger at the time, so that's how Mick Jagger got in on the session. And if you've heard the song a number of times, you may not notice it, but when someone tells you Mick Jagger is doing the backing vocals,
It's all you can hear.
you could never ever not hear them again.
Because his voice is one very distinct. He has that kind of, I don't know if it's like a roll or like a, you know what I mean? He does like different kind of the way he pronounces things. And it's Mick Jagger. Like it is Mick Jagger 100%. And I never paid attention. I knew it was a guy singing backup vocals, but I had always focused my ear on Carly Simon because it's her song, right? And so now that I know, that's all I hear. I don't even hear her anymore. She's just providing a harmony. He's the lead singer now.
Yeah, it's very prominent once you know it's there.
And now everybody's going to go listen to the radio and be like, they're right. And it'll be stuck with you. You guys will always hear about itching and Carly Simon and Mick Jagger. All right. What's the next song?
All right. So this one, again, this is a little bit of a tenuous link with the way that this is spelled. But this is Cheap Trick and the song Dream Police.
I mean, to be fair, Tim, everything we've said about the songs and all the stories we had are tenuous like connections.
Well, in the very beginning, they were, it had, I said I soon ran out of songs that had ice in them. And I really didn't want to talk about Ice Ice Baby particularly.
I mean, that was a little too obvious. And it's also a person that I don't really care for.
Robert Van Winkle.
Yeah, that's what we'll follow.
Your dad's best buddy, Robert Van Winkle.
Yeah, he still to this day has no clue who he is. I mean, the most cliche thing a person can do is pull a "Do you know who I am" card, Tim. Like that's more cliche than anything I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in a position to do that, but I wouldn't do that.
Doesn't that seem like something fake you see on a movie or something? Do you know who I am? Like it's just so.
Well, no, I've heard that. I may have told the story on here before, where a friend used to work at Legoland in Windsor, and they had a rule where it was like if you went to Legoland in the morning, it was one price, and then it got to like 1 p.m. and then it became a discount. So Scary Spice, your friend Scary Spice, was queuing up to go to Legoland.
That works because Spice has ice in it.
There we go, see? And then it was like 12:30 or something, and goes up to the counter and said, I want the discounted ticket. And she said, sorry, I can't sell you the discounted ticket. You have to wait till 1 p.m. There's a waiting area over the side there if you wish to wait, but I can't admit you until 1 p.m. And Scary Spice pulled the "Don't you know who I am" card.
It's not a good look.
No.
It just seems like a walking cliche. You know what I mean? When people are making fun of people, they're like, oh, don't you know who I am? Kind of like, yeah, there you go. Robert Van Winkle.
Yeah.
But back to the Dream Police. I like the song a lot. It's probably Cheap Trick is one of those bands that I go through kind of like an obsession with, and then I forget about them for a while, and then I go through an obsession with them, and then I forget about them for a while. But I also have an issue with them because I got burnt out very quickly of them because I used to, like every other person who grew up, like, around my time, we burned a lot of CDs off that website we won't name. And I used to make mixed CDs all the time. Thought I was the coolest person ever, right? We all did. And the first song on one of the albums was from Cheap Trick, and it was oh God, what is the name I'm thinking? I Want You to Want Me, right? The most cliche Cheap Trick song you could ever think of. And I made the mistake of like putting a CD in my car, and I would keep forgetting to get, my CD case and bring it out to the car. So every time I turned my car on, all I would hear is "I Want You to Want Me" for like 6 months. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tim? When it plays the first song of the album every time you turn the CD player on?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So I got really burnt out on that. And then there was a few other Cheap Trick songs, so like I was on my phase, you know what I mean, on that album, Tim. So I did go through a while where I could never listen to them again.
I can understand that. I had a setup in one of my cars where the head unit plugged into an iPod, which you kept in the glove box, and then when you crank the car, it would always default to the very first letter, like A track and A, whatever it was. And it was a Chicken Foot song. And it played that every time you cranked the car, before you could go into it and set random or playlist or whatever, it would play this Chicken Foot song. And even now to this day, I've got the album it's on. And when I hear it, it's like, oh, let's turn it off. I've heard this thousands of times.
And then another piece of advice, if you ever think it's a good idea to get like one of those radios that has like a CD player or anything like that built into it, it will play the first song on the album every time you wake up. And let me tell you, nothing will burn you out of a song quickly than it being your alarm clock, especially if you're like me and you love sleeping.
Exactly.
All right, Tim, I think we got time for like two more.
Well, let's do one more. Let's do one more. So we're going to close out with some high quality Swedish power pop.
Of course.
And this is ABBA from their final album, The Visitors. And this is 2 for the price of 1.
I love the Visitors album. Tim is actually kind of to credit for my love of this album because he reminded me of it when I worked in the place we used to work at. I don't want to say the name of it, but I worked at that previous place. Tim started talking about this album to me one day, and I would kind of had forgot about it. Like I remembered the artwork with the bookcases, but I hadn't really thought about it. And I went back after he was talking about it, and I listened to it from beginning to end, and it was one of their best, in my opinion, their best album.
Yeah, it's kind of a dark album in so much, the band was splitting up and their relationships were ending and all that kind of stuff.
So good, though.
But the music is so good on there. Even the title track, The Visitors, is superb. I mean, I highly recommend to everyone to listen to that after this podcast because it really is their finest work.
And it is a darker side of ABBA. Like, let's be honest, it's not your Mamma Mia type voulez-vous type thing here. Just keep that in perspective. But they're such good artists; they can do literally everything. I mean, I think there's like themes in it about like the Cold War or something. If I remember right.
There's a lot of dark topics in there, but it really did create some good music.
Yes, if you have not listened to this album and you are an ABBA person and you only know, you know what I mean, you think of them as like the pop side. They did a really good job on this album.
Yeah, highly recommended, ladies and gentlemen.
And it's a pretty short album, so it won't take you too long to get through it.
No, there you go. You can knock it out in under an hour. There we go.
All right. Well, Tim, what do you want to tell to the people?
I want to say be kind to everyone that you meet, but also listen to ABBA's The Visitors. And to be extra kind to people, maybe tell them to listen to ABBA The Visitors too.
That's great advice. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.